Really quick, before we get started, if you are blessed by this ministry, if you're blessed by this platform, anything that I bring to the table, I ask you to partner with me via Patreon. Go to patreon.com/TruthSeekah and you unlock rewards, my entire discography of music, webinars, meditations, weekly hangouts, and so much more. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Go check it out.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at truthseekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast. I'm your host, TruthSeekah, excited for another episode. Today, my guest is Alan Steinfeld. My first time speaking with you. Alan, welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
Great. There's so much happening on the planet that I'm excited to talk to someone who's open-minded, who's looking at all the options, the big picture. So I think this is what we need, more people out there talking about these subjects that a lot of people don't like to talk about. So ask me anything.
Yeah, well, hey, one thing you just said, all the options, looking at all the options versus the first option. It may be a cool option, but it's not looking at all the options, right? Have you experiencing that, as we progress?
Definitely. Yeah, we're at this moment in history, and it's showing up in people's personal lives. I find a lot of people are either getting it together or losing it completely. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
It's extreme. I think the uncertainty of the times, the pandemic, whatever that was about, kind of traumatized people. It's like the world, and you know what? The world was never what we thought it was anyway.
Right.
So the people who knew that are having a lot easier time adjusting to the planetary changes and whoever's visiting us. And it's really about thinking differently somehow about reality, right?
New realities.
That's been my company for a long time, because I always thought that, the world is not what we have been told. So what are these new realities? And I've been looking for that for 20 years and still looking, because, it keeps changing. So seeking truth is a big part of that. Like, what is the truth? How do we know who's to listen to for the truth? We're definitely not getting truth from, government, politicians, media, religion, all the things that people education. But somehow people are finding their way, I think. I think there's hope. I'm not, really a conspiracy person, of course, but I think there is hope for the collective.
Yeah, I agree as well. Those people who are kind of losing their stuff or being rude or whatever the case is, like the energy really, it just heightens whatever you are. Like if you was that, and that stuff's coming out, but some people who are kind of having a hard time or they're losing it, right? You can't blame them. Like in the past, maybe we say, hey, that's not cool, or, you kind of take the blame, but it's like, hey, I understand. So I get messages a lot. I'm sure you do too. Of one of the things that I try to be careful of early on, for sure, but the Messiah complex stuff. I let these people who think they are Jesus, or think people who think I am Jesus or I'm a reincarnated God or something. And though we may resemble and might have those traces of DNA and resemblance in light spectrum, if you will, but not going fully into Messiah complex. But I've been getting a lot of those messages lately. A lot of people thinking they are Sophia, the Holy Spirit, anything you can name, they have fully become that locally, themselves
Yeah.
on the earth, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about that. My theory is, if you look at a tree, there's the trunk, and then there's branches, and then there's the twigs. And so most people in their personality are like these twigs, and they may get a glimpse that they're part of something else. But then the personality comes in and says, oh, yeah, we're the big thing. And they're still the little thing. I mean, we're all part of the greater mind, but people who develop, I think that's what's changing now. People who develop these messiah complexes and gurus and teachers. I mean, it's okay to have teachers, but saying they are the answer, that was a very Piscean age. And I mean, I'm not really into the Bible so much, but when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the light, I think he meant I am. The I am is the way.
Yeah.
It's not Jesus, it's the I amness. And maybe people like Jesus realized and transcended a personality and became part of a bigger consciousness. But if you're talking from the little self and you're saying you're the truth in the way, it's like, no, I don't think so, because we're all the same. We're all equal.
I tell you what, it's funny because I'm big into words and etymology. And if anybody, I don't even want to say this, like my name means the way. Derek is Hebrew, the walk is Hebrew for the way. So if you're not careful, hey, I am what I know that just means, well, what about all the other Dereks? You know what I'm saying? We are all part of that collective.
You are the way. For you, your way is the way. And you've somehow, I mean, I don't know that much about you, but I think from what I've seen, you're looking for that truth. And the looking for the truth is the way. Rumi says, go to people, look for people who are looking for the truth and run away from people who have found the truth,
Well, somebody quoted that on a talk with you many years ago, and it's a good somebody who came to be a pretty good friend of mine. He wrote the foreword of my book, Jordan Maxwell.
Oh.
He started off most of his lectures saying the same thing: never trust the person who claims to have the truth, but always trust the person who's seeking it. And that's, I'm sure that's where he got it from. But can you talk a little bit about Jordan Maxwell? Because before the cluttered days of the internet, you've been doing this for a long time. And so me, as somebody on my spiritual awakening, I found your talks with Jordan Maxwell, and that introduced me to a lot of your work early on as well. So thank you for putting in work and standing the test of time and still being here. But can you talk a little bit about the late, great Jordan Maxwell?
Yeah, Jordan was a unique individual with such a special, important perspective. He saw through the matrix long before anyone else did. I didn't know him that well. I'd see him at conferences. He sat down with me for that interview, which I thought was really, an important moment. And he really understood words. He understood how language is a manipulation. And that's what I liked about him. Like the way you're saying it, it's like even the word understanding. When you stand on, you've heard that, right? When you stand under something, you see how solid or stable this argument is by understanding it. So, he was also important in understanding symbols and their effect on the subconscious mind. So when we see something like these gas companies using things like the chevron, the chevron of these two layers, that is that's sort of like the separation of the spirit and the body. And the gas companies use those sort of symbols to affect our subconscious mind. So they're talking to us in spiritual symbols, yet they're pushing us to buy their gas. So we're being manipulated from the core innate part of ourselves to, to be almost brainwashed into a society that's consciously using these symbolic forms to affect our consumer power. Like the shell. The shell is also another symbolic shell gas, but it's also another symbol of this body spirit relationship. And since most of us innately know we are a spirit, when we see signs of that, we gravitate towards that. So another level of manipulation. And Jordan was really aware of many of the levels of manipulation, and he probably got in trouble for it, right? You know.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. He knew some stuff. I'll tell you this. Um, so Jordan would join our. We have like a Thursday night hangout session with like supporters and that kind of thing. And if Jordan wasn't busy, he'd jump in and I'd surprise my students and stuff. Is Jordan
Great.
right? He'd just hang out and talk. But one of the last conversations I had with him was November 2019. He jumped in with us, and he was all business. And he did what Jordan Maxwell did great at the end of his run, was very much doom and gloom. It was there
Yeah.
was really not a lot of hope. The only hope he had, and he let you know this, that he was about to pass and he wouldn't be here much longer, and he couldn't wait to get off of this planet, and he did what he had to do. So he jumped in, but he was telling us all of the stuff that was about to happen. Like he knew
Mm.
about Trump and he knew about all of this stuff, and he told us what was coming. And the weird thing about it, I mean, this was a pretty decent sized group. No, but we kind of laughed at him. Jordan, no, it's not going to get that bad. It could never. A lot of people who were a bit more rational with their understanding, Jordan, it could never go that south that quick. Jordan, this could never. No, you're going to see rioting in the streets. This is all by design. They're going to have you doing this and doing that, and there's sickness coming. And I had it recorded of this conversation, and I had to go back and tell the group afterwards, like, Jordan, you're just being, it's all going to be okay, which it is. It's all going to be okay, right? But he had that insight. He knew things, and he did pay the price, or prices, if you will, for sharing that information and trying to wake people up that most of us let him tell it. We would rather play football or skateboard or whatever he would say.
Yeah, I mean, he had a strange childhood. I didn't know it directly, but a friend of mine got close to him. My friend James Carmen did a film called The Hidden Hand, and he knew Jordan, and Jordan had some early childhood UFO contacts and things that just opened his mind to see through. Did you know about that? Some of his early childhood stuff?
Yeah. Yeah,
What
those
what
were
did you
things that had me, light up. When we're talking about like making contact, and you hear his stories, man. I tell you this, I never could get him to repeat those stories with me, though. Um,
Oh,
Even over the years, I started interviewing him and talking to him 2011, maybe 2011. And I want to hear these stories. I want to hear about Bible stuff and words and the zodiac in the Bible and all these cool things. But I try to get him to retell those stories. And from that point, he didn't do that on any podcast anymore. It was all like doom and gloom
mm.
from that moment out. Yeah. But those
I
stories
mean,
are amazing for sure. They lit something
yeah.
within me. I'll tell you that.
I mean, I think I understand why he was doom and gloom, because he had such a hard time.
Yeah.
He was fighting the matrix, that mindset, and he was, on the front lines, and maybe he thought it was hopeless or something, because people don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear the fact that they're being tried on the law of the sea and not law of the land, which was just fantastic when he told me that. It's like, the whole thing. I'm sure you've heard that,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. For sure.
And people don't want to see the truth. Mark Twain, my favorite quote from Mark Twain, it says, it's easier to convince the people of the lie than to tell them they've been lied to. So it's like, we have this way of functioning And we need people like Jordan Maxwell. We need, Terence McKenna was another one, his work, Terence McKenna, and a little more psychedelic, and Timothy Leary before him, tune in, turn on, drop out, because it wasn't that he was the big LSD guru. It wasn't that LSD was bad for you. It just made you think differently than what the mainstream was wanting to tell you. That was Leary's whole point of view. So but there's a book called The Long Revolution about how artists and people like what we talk about are pushing for this big change, and it is a long revolution, because I think eventually the truth will come out. Truth about UFOs. It's already cracking. Of course, did you see the hearings last week where they covered it up again and said, no, there's no evidence of, it was a Senate hearing with Kristen Gillibrand saying, no, there's no evidence of UFOs being here on Earth. And I say to them, I would, if I talked to them, what evidence would you need? You're saying you don't know how these things operate. You say they're not from any country that it's not from US, China, Russia, or any rogue country, military. So what would convince the kind of very stuck mainstream that there are intelligent forces visiting us from somewhere else? You know what? Nothing would convince them, because it's not in their frame of limited consciousness to take that into their reality.
Yeah.
So what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Maybe a smart guy, but not very open. People like him think they have all the answers. Oh yeah, we figured that out. We know what a black hole is. We know how stars. They don't know anything. I mean, they must know something. They know how to run an automobile or whatever. But it's like there are big questions, and if we keep listening to science that says, "Oh, we have the answers," then we'll never really have the truth. Even Charles Darwin, Darwin, created the theory of evolution, but he doesn't know how one species becomes another species. He says, yes, because I wrote a paper on evolution, and when I really got into it, how does a dog become a cat, or whatever the parent of those two species, that can't be. A speciation has not been explained. All they can explain in Darwin's theory is adaptation. Yes, for colder climates, animals develop a warmer coat. That's just an adaptation, but there's no theory, and I think I may have come up with one, I'm not saying it's real, how one species evolves into the next species. I don't even know if we really descended from apes. I think we descended from the gods, from the greater consciousness, not a god, but a collective of higher intelligence. But speciation, how one species becomes another, my theory is because of cosmic radiation, either solar flares, a little bit that tweak the DNA with intention to become different. Like we're in a species change right now. We're becoming the new human because we're thinking differently. We're breaking out of the box. And that's really hopeful for me. I'm sorry that Jordan suffered, because he was a great person, a great mind, and he should have been on national television. But, in a two-dimensional world, there's no room for a three-dimensional person. And that's what we're dealing with here. So
yeah, I think it's important to note, the people that he inspired, like myself, and his reward, if you will, the fruits of his labor, that I believe that, just like you were talking, the way, someone is a part of Jesus even, or whatever God or Gaia or whoever they carry a piece of. Now when that person passes on, they separate themselves to divide themselves to whoever can carry it, and whoever can. And Jordan's big shoes to fill, and there was many times Jordan said stuff that I didn't understand. I could not wrap my brain around it many times. But now that he's transitioned, what he had is now up for grabs spiritually, if you will, to take it to the next level. So Jordan, there's stuff I'm finally getting, and it may have taken him to stop saying it and let the
Yeah.
energy, let everything that he collected to be dispersed to whoever can hold it. And now, in your meditations, in your musings, in your contemplation, that stuff is what he brought to the table. People are taking it to the next level. And there's things that we're leaving behind. That
Right.
Jordan was no angel. Jordan
Right.
had mannerisms. Jordan said things. We all do. Humanity. I'm using that as an example. Jesus, any ascended master, while they were here in physical form, what they did with their time, what they did with their breath, what they did with their body, and then they disperse it to those who are ready. And then they ascend to the next level. And I think that's the same way with us, because I'm finding that in my life. Not I knew Jordan, right? And many people that there's no one left to fill the shoes unless
Right.
you want to. Wanting to is that contemplation, is that thinking about the things he talked about, wrestling it with you. What did he mean by that? These different entities were here, and they're not human, and they're mentioned in the wrestling with it until it finally clicks and unlocks. Wow, that's what he was talking about. Um, that's how this process is seems to be working. And then now you carry everything that the greats before you came.
Right.
There's a lot of people, even after a pandemic or just where we are now, who still are doom and gloom, and again, I don't blame you, but to look at all the things they show us on television as if that is the new reality. No way. That's their reality that they just got a larger printing press. Let's say that. And
Right.
to look at humanity, to where we've come from the last 50 years. Like, it used to be okay to have slaves. It used to
Yeah.
be okay that women were like looked at as property and they couldn't vote. This was the plumb line. Like,
Yeah.
they were less than. This stuff would never fly now. And yes, we're going through birth pains and growing pains as well. We're going to continue, but this is the evolution of, like you said, our species to become the visions of ourselves that we read about in these books, that we read about in these comic books, that we dream about in our dreams. We're tapping into what everybody's brought to the table.
Beautiful. Thank you for that beautiful sharing there. Sounds like you knew Jordan a lot, well, probably better than I did, certainly. But maybe I'm just thinking as you were talking, we can hold a round table towards Jordan with other people who knew Jordan and kind of throw around these ideas and a tribute to Jordan and the insight. I think that would be valuable because we don't want to forget some of the things that he put out there. Maybe not the doom and gloom, but the genius, the insights, the perceptions of these other realities that he was seeing that no one else was able to see at that time. And
Well, I
he
think what made me think about that was how he, was big on etymology and words, like you're saying, and what these words
yeah.
really mean and what these symbols really mean. And then we look at disclosure right now and ufology and things, and they'll never admit that they'll never admit. But what I've been finding is that they're admitting they're just using the different terms. So maybe in a case like Neil Tyson deGrasse that says, no, we're not being visited off planet. That could not happen. Now, why would they come here? And all of how he does his thing, that doesn't exist, but never addressing the fact that they don't travel that way. They're interdimensionals and they're in the same atmosphere. They're not coming from out there, but they're coming from inside our atmosphere,
Mhm.
which is what a lot of people believe. So it's like they'll tell you the truth only to lie to you, to throw you off. Oh yeah, we're not being
Right.
visited out there. Well, how are we being visited, sir? Are they in the bottom of the ocean? Are
That's
they
right.
share occupy? Are they coming out of
Oh,
the mountains?
you said something interesting. They'll tell you, but it's slowly leaking out. Like one clue that they did give us, whoever they are, the government inside, from going from UFO to UAP. You know that change that happened like in 2017. They went from unidentified flying object to unexplained aerial phenomena. So essentially, we're going from object to phenomena. That's really the change in that last part. And so, what does that mean? That means that what we're seeing and experiencing are not just things in the sky, but they're actually affecting people neurologically, physiologically, psychologically. There's an effect. It's a phenomena that's more than just a witness observation. There's an interaction. That's what I get. And I think that is a subtle redefinition that we're getting closer. It's not the real truth, but it's getting closer to a new way of understanding that. And that was, I think there's forces inside the government saying we can't keep up this, lie, the charade anymore, because first of all, we're having many more sightings around the planet, not just in the US. People just think it's all about the US. No, I talked to ufologists in China, in Korea, in South America, in Europe, Italy, France, Britain. Worldwide, there's something happening, and all someone really has to do is connect the dots and say, wait a minute, something's going on. We better wake up as a planetary civilization, as a collective, and try to figure out what's going on here. This is what I think the best thing for the government, the US, whoever's like running the government to, or those questioning, because of course the government is more than one thing. There's the people who keep the secrets and the people supposedly that we elect, if we do, to reveal the secret. I mean, who knows about that? I mean, but I think there's a few people, maybe Kristen Gillibrand, maybe I don't know who else. Tim Burchett in Tennessee. Do you know his work? He's trying to say, yeah. I mean, there's a few people say, wait a minute, what's going on? Why don't we? What's really the big deal that we're not alone in the universe? Why is that such a secret? I mean, any ideas?
Oh man. Well, I I've been taken to the skies a lot. I've been doing it for years. Uh
What do you mean taken to the skies? What do you
Watching the sky, stargazing for
okay.
hours by myself in meditation and hoping something moves and praying and meditating and all that. And then finally stuff started moving, and this was just by
Yeah.
myself years ago. And it was always a nighttime phenomenon, But as of recent, and I say recent, maybe 3 months ago, something like that, um, had an encounter where I started seeing stuff during the day around the sun. And
Wow.
and I got so much footage, like Merkabas, all kinds of craft and all types of entities are circling the sun, going in. It is wild stuff that I'm catching on camera. But I'll say this: the idea of, because I'm like it too. Tell us the truth. Let us know we can handle it. And like, look at we didn't even bat an eye about the Chinese or UFO stuff all over the. We listen. Come on. We're ready for it, but
Right.
we're ready for little green men. We're
Right.
ready for interdimensional blue, beautiful avian angels or Nordics, and we may be ready for those things. But some of the things that I've been catching on camera, I would say, is a little bit more scarier. And I'm not a doom and gloom guy, so much so that I don't even want to. I haven't released much of it.
Well,
Just only
what's
one.
scary for you? Tell me what was scary.
Um, they consume one another, and they're
Uh,
large. Um, Looking like giant whales
mm,
um, that are flying right, like you're looking at a UFO or some type of aerial phenomena going on, and then a big one passes behind it, and it's like what they look like amoebas and things that you would see under a petri dish, and how they're consuming each other and getting bigger. But I mean, that whole analogy is what even I was sharing a while ago about someone giving up their life's work and what they brought to the table in order for another one to take it and carry it to the next level. I mean, that's what we're doing the collective's doing for the planet anyway, with our light and with our life force. But things that look like spiders that are
Right.
large and just like positioned still in the sky, like some stuff that's like, oh, that's pretty scary. What is that? Is that a thing? And then other one, they're chasing each other, and some things come out of the sun that look like a dragon that are chasing other things. So I'm like, okay, these aren't just nuts and bolts. These are entities that are coming
Yeah.
out feed. But there's
Yeah.
all types of different ones, and it is
No, you should document that. I totally get what you're saying, and
the
you've
little
been
green man's like, okay, yeah, we'll tell you that. But it's like, okay, there's one, he's probably gonna try to eat the half of the earth, and we got to be good. What, I don't know, but that's the conversation, that it is looking like some of those weirder movies that weren't as sexy, of Starship Troopers and stuff like that.
Well, that's the problem, that the government wants to keep hold of this, in a way, fantastic reality that we're really a part of. There's some
Whatever
of
it
it
is.
scary, but on the other end of that, there's some amazing beings as well.
Sure.
That so it's, but we need to have the whole picture. We can't be controlled by religious beliefs and label things as devils or this or angel. I mean, yeah, that all may be true, but it's much bigger and much more complex and detailed. And we've been very superstitious and very limited by dogma. And what you're doing is trying to crack it open and saying, let's get away from all these brainwashing programs that have us put everything into a little box. And if there are dragons coming out of the sun, or there are, like, I think the archons controlling people, what did he talk? I don't know if he called it the archons, Jordan Maxwell, but
No, I
you
didn't. I
know,
didn't mention it, but yeah, it definitely ties in for sure.
yeah, because they, and I do think it's true, they feed on human emotion. These other life forms. So if people are always in drama, always in crisis, always worried or scared or sad and depressed, I mean, there are forces feeding on that emotional energy and sucking it in and perpetuating it. And they're controlling our lives. And we're being kept from that awareness because it's so strange to even acknowledge that. But what if that's really the truth? And what if that, and what, then we can do something about it. If
Exactly.
we don't know the truth, then we're subject to be a victim of the lies.
Right.
By knowing, by saying, like, maybe something more is possible. Maybe you are trusting your reality. And thank you for doing that, because you're not letting anyone else tell you what's true for you. You know what you're seeing, you know what you're feeling, and no one's going to come along like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, no, it's an artifact on the radar. It can't be true, because it's outside of most people's boxes. But this is the critical point we are at in our moment of civilization, is that the old box, the old snake is shedding its skin. It's growing, it's changing. And it's like the planet is in a free form, like maybe the consciousness, where we don't know what's up and down, and we just have to kind of ride it out in a way until it comes into a new form. That's what they call chaos theory. Chaos theory, it's a science of chaos theory, where the old system, it can't hold the new information, so it becomes destabilized and it kind of almost completely collapses until like a new order can be formed to hold the new information. So this is chaos and complexity theory, and I think that's what we're witnessing. And I think it's kind of exciting, actually. We're witnessing a time where we're moving from the Piscean age of, gurus and, messiahs, and to being our own individualized connection to the source.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm right there with you. But it goes
Yeah.
back to the beginning, considering all the weighing all the options. I like the
Yeah.
first option better, but I think the truth is in the middle of all the options, right? You take all of the scenarios, all of the options, all the evidence, and then throw the dart in the middle. Is usually that place where everything kind of fits together somewhere in the middle.
What's the first option though? You said you like the first option better. What would
Um,
that be?
Angels. Just
Right.
angels. Demons are down here with us. It's very simple. And maybe and it is that, that you would be angels if they're ascended, right? They're at a higher altitude. Yeah, I would still say
Yeah.
that, but just all love and light. I'd say that. Nobody has to
I mean,
get,
it is all love and light on some level,
but they
right?
eat light. Some of them are like consuming, like, I don't, so it's just the possibilities are endless, we'll say that. But like I got a lot of footage of, and people are going out getting their own footage. They're seeing how I do it, and it's amazing. But there's things that are collecting energy, possibly souls. I don't know what they're collecting, but they're going towards the sun, and they're releasing things into the sun, like balls of light. And then there's all these other energies or souls. I don't know what they are, but it's like they're putting things in the sun and they're taking things out of the sun too. They're getting energy, they're fueling up, they're dipping down close to a lot of far out stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you're, talking about this because it has to be talked about. So no matter how far out it is,
Yeah.
people have to hear your perception, what you're getting, and be open to every possibility because the world is not only, like I think Terence McKenna said, not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. So let's jump into the deep end and I don't know, sort through it, lay it all out, demand the government to come out. Okay, you have alien bodies, you have that crash ship. Let's roll it out for the public and for the world. Figure out what's the technology here, what's going on, who are these beings, where they're from, what do they want from us, and let put it all out on the table. We're really one race of humans. You know, where are you from, color your skin, what religion? We're really so much more alike than we are different. That's obvious. But, this is a situation that you're seeing that many people that is affecting everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the best perspectives is Chris Bledsoe. Have you seen his book, God and UFOs?
Yeah.
He's getting a bigger picture there, and he has governments investigating him, and he's just saying, "Come on in, check out the phenomena." And the government people don't know what to do with it; they're blown away, and that's how it should be because the truth is cracking open, and we don't know what it really looks like. So you're right; it's not about little green men and all that. That's like a little fairy. We don't know what it is and it's like, and that's pretty exciting just because everyone always thought they knew what was going on and they had it all together, and suddenly it all breaks down, and it's like we're able to start over in a sense. Like, let's lay out a new foundation for how we can live together. And like you said, yeah, things like slavery are unthinkable today, but back then it was just things people normalize. But what are we doing today that in 100 years people will say, wow, how could they think that was like good for people?
Yeah,
It's
for
like,
sure. For sure.
yeah.
And
So
you know how we get there is the way we do that to ourselves. It's our own, contemplation, or obviously we don't judge others, we judge ourselves. But we should judge ourselves amongst ourselves and amongst the greatest. Who's the most greatest one here, right? And for me, that's who Jesus was, or Jesus is, a loving, compassionate, listen, I'll give up my life so y'all don't have to die. Like this kind of level. So that way we look at ourselves and I'm like, I'm not judging you for eating pork or eating meat. And it's something I need. I gotta, because
Yeah.
if I raise my standard, then I'm the light. I'm not the
Yeah.
Messiah, but it's like, hey, let's get that straight. Like, who's the most, who's got it figured out? Who's doing it? And there'll be results that come with it, right? All the people will rejoice. Like, for you to bring your light, everybody
Yeah.
has something beautiful, a piece of the puzzle, even if it's just to sit down and dialogue with ideas, because at the end of the day, I think that all realities exist. And this
Yeah.
is what
No,
Earth is.
no, I
It's a
appreciate
war
your
for the
perspective,
reality,
Derek.
the narratives.
I was just saying, I really appreciate your perspective because it's really balanced. And I could see you are a teacher for a lot of people, because you found something inside of you that was truth. And so it's only from there that you can help guide others to their truth. And so you've owned a lot of that wisdom. You've done a lot of work. I don't know you, but I can tell you've really looked in, you've really uh accepted a piece about yourself, and you've come, you have that, and that's the place where you can help uplift others. And just, if we can help other people find that, then we'll have a really positive world where we won't need war or people taking this from other people, because they're really looking for the thing that you kind of dropped into, that piece. So they don't need to take it from people or even relationships or money or like all the stuff people want around them, because they're missing what they really, what some people have found. So they're trying to get it from the world. And you know it's about you have to go beyond religion, because that's not going to give it to you either. You have to find your own divine guidance,
Yeah,
and those books.
there's many doorways to,
Yeah.
the center of the wheel, if you will. They say not all spokes lead to the center, but they do. They do. Like, if I haven't practiced every religion. I haven't, so I can't say for sure. But I know that there's people who haven't, and many of us are getting to the same conclusion, and we've never studied each other's religion. We've from different parts of the world, but there's a commonality. It's the pursuit of the soul. It's the evolution of the soul that is becoming spirit, and we acknowledge that in everything and in everyone, including Jordan Maxwell, the beautiful stuff that he brought to the table, that anybody brings to the table. And I got to be careful how you say this, because this is one of the most polarizing people that you can use. But like, Kanye West did this when he was all in the news, but he did the podcast with Alex Jones. He found a way to honor Adolf Hitler. He looked at Adolf Hitler where everyone would just immediately, you're getting canceled, sir, for mentioning that, kind of thing. And then he was like, no, but he loved to engineer. He loved to build roads, and he had a lot of cool things. But he's like, no, damn the bad stuff. Nah, none of that is why you think me vouching for the good that this guy represented. Is
Well,
me
he did kill millions of
co-signing the
people.
bad stuff. But it's just to see even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? And everybody has something, but
Yeah.
that was you probably don't start out going that far left, because I'm not trying to make an excuse for that or whatever.
I mean, someone like that, Hitler, I mean, he did kill millions and millions of innocent people. And I think that comes out of a need for power. I mean, who knows what traumas he were brought up where he needed to exert, and life wasn't that important to him or whatever. So yeah, maybe he liked animals and whatever, but I don't know. I think some people like that become such a that kind of force in the world, are also feeding off the negativity. And I think they're taking over. I wouldn't want to say by naming any kind of demonic thing, but I think those people who are out for destruction, there's maybe a little bit of humanity that is left there, but I think we really need to help people. Like, look at all the kids that are going into schools shooting people, and they don't even know why they're doing that. That's like the most awful thing. You send your kid to school and there's some maniac there. It's like, how is that even possible? Or it's like, the worst thing. And what's going on with these people that are pushing them for power, for to do that, for that? We have to get to the cause and the root of that before it erupts. But people are discarded, and they're bullied, and there's a reaction, and we're just not looking at the source. And then they'll put those people in jail, and you do whatever you have to do. I mean, I don't think anyone should own an automatic weapon, but the people who want to own an automatic weapon, I think those are people should definitely be looked at right from the start. Just like you need
Yeah,
a license
what this? Yeah.
car. I mean, it's great. We have cars and people have licenses. I mean, there's a whole story about that, but people like Hitler, I mean, there's some seriously damaged people who have ways of reacting to not being loved, really. I think it's that. And Marshall Rosenberg would say, Marshall Rosenberg started a thing called nonviolent communication about really how to respect people for where they're at. He would say that's a tragic expression of an unmet need. It's like people have needs, and if they don't get their basic human needs met, they'll create levels and levels of extreme action, because everyone has a need to be loved and to express love. Everyone has a need for food and shelter and comfort and connection. And if those are missing, people do extreme measures, from, individual drug abuse, because they're looking for comfort in these altered states, which if they want to do that, I think there's other options. And
Well, some of us are
but
looking for aliens in these altered states, Alan.
yeah, that's true. But you don't need a state to find those aliens, right? You found them, and you weren't in an altered state, or were you? Maybe you were.
Well, there's different ones in different states. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true.
there's different
There's a
ones
whole
in different states. See, that's the beauty and the complexity of it. You mentioned Terrence McKenna, and I love
yeah.
this quote because it was like a challenge quote to me. Him speaking on UFOs and ufology, and he would kind of talk down in just a little sleight of hand of like he'd say, you know, what we have in the drug community that you guys in the UFO community don't have is repeatability. That we can take 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms in the darkness, and suddenly we're in front of the teachers, and they come to us, and the machine elves. And he would say that, and I would wonder how he would feel about the state of ufology now with CE5 initiatives and people like myself going out and being able to make contact. And it was a thing of repeatability. Can we go out? Can we meditate? Can we fast? Can we do whatever to get them to show up, to blink a certain amount of times, or whatever this connection was? And I think we did and are, right?
We are getting repeatability. My friend Zinka Caro has a whole Making Contact University where she has these radios that go off anytime there's a vehicle around, and she's getting repeatability. So also Terrence had a very significant UFO encounter in the jungles of I think it was Brazil, where he wasn't high on mushrooms. He was very sober. Errol, do you know that account that he put out there?
Um, I believe I've heard it, but just not right off.
So he said this was the classic UFO sighting. It went from a cloud and it became a solid thing. And it looked like something from what's his name? George Adamski's photo. And he said and he's in the middle of the jungle witnessing this thing by himself. And it said it was such a classic UFO. It was like there was someone doing a movie around, huh? But it was just him out there in the middle of nowhere, and he couldn't understand that, and he couldn't make sense of it. So one of the best things, lines he came up with is that the UFO phenomena is showing up in its way because we can't handle what it's really about, what's really going on here. It's like the real thing, and maybe it's the stuff you're seeing coming out of the sun, is so far out that all we can take in little pieces are these alien spaceships. But that's not really what it's about. And it's about something way bigger. And yeah, maybe drugs, altered states will give you a little glimpse, but I think our own DMT that's being generated in altered states and dream states, because that's when I've had my
No,
experiences.
I'm with you. I definitely vouch for that for sure.
Yeah.
Been that.
So it's coming. I mean, I think the vibration of the planet is changing. I think things that were not obvious before, all the things that you said, Jordan Maxwell talked about, and all the things he clued people into 30, 40 years ago, many people are realizing that's changing the way we think about reality. It's opening doorways that maybe were only opened by drugs before, but perceptions are changing. Art, consciousness, the whatever's out there, the reality, more people having these dream experiences. And that's what's making a lot of people really on edge because they can't explain, and that's including the government. The government can't explain what's going, so they rather just lie about it. And so we need to stand up for the truth, like that's what you're doing. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there saying their stuff, but I think we're wiping the slate clean. We're starting over, and we have to look for the people seeking the truth seekers.
What
Is
what is
that
one of the most profound experiences you had? I mean, you wrote a book, Making Contact, right? And you've been a researcher, you've been out there for a long time. I think people like you and many others, your name needs to be mentioned in there with them, because I was a researcher and I found your stuff, while I
yeah.
was just new, and it was a reverberation. It was something that it would, oh wow, okay, he's talking about stuff. Okay, now, but see, you're bringing the spiritual stuff to the table. It's not doom and gloom. It's not just nuts and bolts. There's a spiritual ascension aspect to a sighting and to these things that you're bringing to the table. So I want to definitely give you your roses on that, man, and just say I see you and I appreciate you.
Well, you-
Would have been
that's-
some of the like, let's just say this. Why did you get started? Was it
yeah,
an
yeah.
experience or something like that that made you just dive into this stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I really appreciate that question because I always felt different than my family. They were pretty normal. They went to baseball and they did the sports and the Cub Scouts, and they were and they're nice people. They're out there working regular jobs, they're honest and they're trying to do a good thing, raising their family. I always felt a little different, a little outside. And I had some early experiences. I would see faces show up at the window when I was 3 years old, even though we're on the second floor. And I was really hyperactive. It's a good thing I wasn't in school years later. They would have put me on drugs, but I couldn't fall asleep. And I developed a meditation like at 2 years old, trying to fall asleep. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I was just looking straight ahead with my eyes closed and felt like going through tunnels and things and lights. So it was an inner experience. And then I had some out of body experiences, like where I felt myself lift up. And I didn't even know how that happened, but it felt, and then also sleep paralysis where I couldn't move at all. I mean, occasionally, and I had to do something to get back into the body. I mean, it's like, and so really weird things that no one had talked about. So I knew the world wasn't just like baseball games and beer and barbecues or what. I mean, it's great for some people and that's great, but I knew from my personal experiences that I needed to look for other levels of reality, other types of experiences, and I found them in first in science fiction. I read a lot of science fiction, and that was really like, I don't think this is just fiction. I think this is really happening in some other reality. And so that it just made me. And then when I found like the UFOs were actually real, I mean, I was obsessed with Star Trek, and then I found out, you mean this stuff is real? Then I just became totally obsessed. How could it be real and no one knows about it? How come my family does? How come the people in my school don't know about it? If this is real, so you come to a point in your evolution where you go, well, no one else is believing this. Do I go along with the crowd, or do I say maybe there's something that people aren't seeing that I think I'm going to look into? It's like people who discover something. It's like Galileo. Galileo, he didn't invent the telescope, but he was the first to look at space. And everyone said, why are you doing that? We know what's out there. And plus, that's God's bedroom. He doesn't want you looking in on him. That's what they said to Galileo. Of course, he was putting, but he just had a new perspective, or Newton or Einstein or anyone else that, or like, I mean, I have a whole list in my PowerPoint of inventions that were totally denied. Robert Fulton invented the steamboat. He said to Napoleon, I could get your ships to move against the tide. He goes, no, that's ridiculous, and build a fire under the deck. So whenever a new idea or new possibilities comes along, most of the mainstream wants to keep it the way it is. That's the long revolution is pushing for change. So we do have to stand up for what's different. And that's what I've always done. When I found out, like, when I saw these UFOs, and then I had my own dream experience, I guess one of the major times is when I was woken up in the middle of the night, and I don't know if it was a dream or not, but felt real. I was given this little being to hold, this little ET, I mean, or something. It looked like a little animal, or I mean, I didn't have any connection to it, but I've never forgotten it. Dreams, you forget. Like, okay, I had that dream. That was a little weird. What was that again? But there's some dreams I don't think are dreams. They're experiences that happen in an altered state. And I've had a few, but the strangest one was giving this little creature. I mean, I found myself aboard ships. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if those are real, but it's you have to believe and trust in your own experience. And that was something that when I had like mystical experiences, like out of body, or just inner knowing, or just telepathy that became true, or learning to do healing work. These are all realities that the mainstream denied, but I saw they worked. So it's like that. Who do you believe? The people in charge, or your own experience? And you have to step outside the matrix.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the difference.
So awesome, man.
Yeah.
So awesome. You just mentioned when you were a child, like 3 years old, of not being able to go to sleep and having this technique. It's funny, I've kind of just developed that technique myself, or just found that technique for myself, of just exploring, of sitting in silent meditation. And I've just told people over the years, eventually a light appears, like as I'm going within and just trying to block out everything to focus on sleep or focus on whatever. But now meditation, a light would show up, and then it would kind of dance a little bit, almost kind of taking me deeper into the trance that I'm trying to go into, but I would follow it with my mind's eye. And then eventually I was like, let me try to go into it. Let me try the
Yes.
thing. And then eventually I could, and then there was sensations, and then there was tunnels like you talked about, and then I would get in there, and then there's like just all of these like downloads and instant knowings of things. But it something that I've like, it's a go-to for me now, but it seems like you were in somewhere very similar when you were just 3 years
Yeah,
old.
I know, because I was hyperactive. I needed a way to. So yeah, but we've all discovered things. Like, I wanted to ask you, because you found a place of centeredness. That's my feeling. What was that experience that got you to realize, instead of acting out and doing what other people do, how did you find that place in you?
Yeah, just seeing both the polarities of what I can call light and dark, or good and bad to me, and doing both of them, hurting people, and helping people, and so I have a contrast, and now I'd like to, not be center. I'd like to help people more than hurt anybody. I wouldn't If I make people cry, I want them to make them cry out of joy and love and beauty, versus making them cry off other things. And I've done a little bit of all that. So I think that just kind of gnosis, if you will, just through experience, having something taken from you or stolen from you. So you like, and then I've done that. I've taken things from people, and that's like, are you going to continue to make people, how it feels to have something taken from you? Do you want to continue to make? And it's like, once you're on that path, that you're making these choices now, and it's because you know how it feels. And I feel like, we're rewarded for doing good. Like, we got like those beings that you were talking about, the good ones. Like, yeah, those good ones, there's more good ones than bad. I don't think that in some realm of thinking any of those things out there are bad, to be honest with you. They're there for a reason. Everything exists for a reason, even the bad stuff down here, to wade through everything, if you will. But I started out in my walk, in as a teenager, in Satanism, and got into Wicca. But for me, it was all like the dark stuff, and
Yeah.
I tapped into some realities there that were scary, like they
Yeah.
were schizophrenic, they were demons and monsters, and all. And that was like one of my first steps into spirituality, that almost lost my life, or at least lost my mind. And it was not good at all, and I thought I was going to die. And that's, I got into, I say religion. I had been a Christian before that, so I knew even there's a polarity of like this peaceful prayer, meditation, singing to God with your eyes closed and bliss. It's a form of meditation. And you're tapping into a reality that not everybody's privy to, a place of solitude. And I tried to make that a place my heart lives, let's say that. So if I can
Yeah.
take that singing with me, or whatever, this peaceful place that exists beyond the physical, to know that that's my reality. And I do draw from it, when times are hard and uncertainty and scary, or I see those big things out there. What's that? Oh, well, everything's gonna be okay. That.
Appreciate you. Thank you for sharing that. That's really a teaching for me, because and the fact that you've come to, in a sense, like, it feels better to be peaceful. It just feels better, less stress to be in peace than to like try to like deal with the dark side, all those. That's really stressful, because you never know what you're going to come up again.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah. So I like divorced myself from all that, because I
yeah,
couldn't be around any incense and crystals or music. I couldn't be around any of it. I had PTSD, to be honest with you, coming out of witchcraft, and
yeah,
it was very dark. But it took me a few years, but I got to, come full circle to see really, um, psychic abilities and spirituality, all that stuff in the Bible from a biblical context, and how Jesus was operating, and he knew things about people that they knew, and
yeah.
his disciples, and he like taught people how to operate in that. And then I kind of got to come full circle back to the things I was looking for, the spirituality, but not with the low hanging fruit, if you will.
Right. No, but it's great to know that that exists. That's an education.
Oh yeah.
And to know you don't need to go there to feel good about yourself or be a presence or to help people. I mean, people enjoy helping other people. You ask anyone pretty much for directions if you're lost, people are more than happy to share. Oh yeah, you get there. I mean, 99%, occasionally you get someone, but there's a need in people, a basic human need to share and to help others. And that's been ignored because they just whatever, but we need to acknowledge the needs of people. And, I think we are really here to help each other and help ourselves. And, that movie Groundhog's Day is a perfect example of that. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where it's not until he's doing something for the community and for himself does he wake up out of his dream, out of that. And I think that's what karma is. It's like when you can really be there for yourself and everyone others, somehow you wake up out of this next level of delusion into like a bigger reality. And, I think we just have to keep looking for the truth seekers.
For me, it is connected to ufology. It is connected because there is a spiritual sense of, so the first, when I started seeing those stars move and things back in 2010, 2009, in that area, started having these experiences. Like it was kind of like impressed on your heart, like it's downloads, whatever terminology you want to use. Meditate more and take care of your body, stop eating as much meat. And it was, there were these things that it was communicated just to take care of yourself and take care of others. If you want to keep this up and you want to continue. And I would find myself in places where I wasn't, taking care of myself. And then those experiences would stop, and even for years. But the past experiences were cool enough to talk about for years to come, but there was no new experiences. And so last couple of years, actually, it's just gotten a lot deeper, and they're connected with the love, the joy, the expectancy, because I believe that that's what they want to emit, when you have an encounter. I mean, you talk to
Yeah.
anybody who's going to be at the upcoming conference that you're going to be a part of, Contact in
Right.
the Desert. Like, I'm sure all of those people have a similar story, or somewhere in the middle where this made an impact on their life, that brought joy, that brought awe and wonder, curiosity. Star Wars might be real. What? Are you kidding me? They visit off world. What? Like all of this stuff that you as a child knew, but they took from you. And it's like, no, ufology, spirituality, all of this stuff, lends to that for me. And I'm sure for you and everybody listening to.
Yeah, no, ufology, whatever you want to call it, is a way out of the controlled manipulation of the reality that we've been told exists. It is a crack in the door to a bigger world, a bigger possibility. That's why I'm sort of obsessed with it. That's why if you're listening to this, join us at Contact in the Desert, Indian Wells. Go to contactinthedesert.com. And June 2nd to the 4th, it's going to be a great gathering of people really at the forefront of what this phenomenon is all about. And like I said, no one has the whole truth. That's why this book I wrote is a collection of essays. I'll send you the PDF of that so you can take a look. But no one knows, it's such a complex phenomenon. This is some of the things Terence McKenna was trying to say. Yeah, it's not little green men. It's not anything anyone can think, basically. But those are steps to what it might be and steps to who we really are. I mean, in some level, we are the extraterrestrials. We are not from this earth. We are, our minds, our consciousness, because it's beyond the body. When I teach remote viewing, you know what remote viewing is, right? You can look, and it's not just being psychic. I mean, it's like you can perceive what's not in your location. There's no way science can explain it, but people do it all the time. People in my classes, when I teach it, it's like 90% of the people instantly can project their mind somewhere else and get the target. It's like, and I asked Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ, how do you think this happens? And they didn't know. They created the event, and they didn't know how what appears to be local in our little mind can perceive something that's 1,000 or 2,000 miles away, or in the past or the future. It's like, when I say in my class, it's like there's a computer here, and if you didn't know you had an internet, you would think you wouldn't be able to get anything that wasn't already on your computer. someone comes along and says, guess what? I have this thing called the internet where I can get information that's not on my computer. If you don't think that's possible, you think the guy's crazy. It has to be on his computer. It has to be local. And consciousness is non-local. That's why we can communicate with those ETs. So next time, if you want, if you see those ships, just send a thought out, a thought of joy or whatever, not fear, and see what, trust yourself enough to see what you receive. What kind of messages are you receiving? This is what the shamans would do. They would talk to plants and they would just not, they would say, oh yeah, what is this medicine here? And then they would receive the information from the plant. Yeah, use it for, headaches or sore throat. And you would get, that's how ancient herbology started, by the plants giving information, because they are consciousness, we're consciousness. ETs are using the medium of consciousness, but we don't even think consciousness is anything. So we ignore the most important application we have, which is the ability to send and receive thoughts, and not this telepathy. It's so much bigger. So I think the ETs are not greater than us. They may be smarter, they may have greater technology, but on that soul spirit level that you're talking about, they're the same. And so there's an interface of communication that is available. And most of them, like most people, are pretty good. I'd say most ETs are good. There's some probably you don't want to hang out with, but if you're raising your vibration to a level, you're not going to attract the level that can resonate with your vibration. So that's the problem about the witchcraft and all that dark stuff.
That's all I got to see was what I was doing. My life was conducive with the energy. I tapped in and I got to see what I was robbing people, doing drugs, and in gang activity. The life that I was living was conducive to the beings that I saw. And
the vibration, right? The vibe. But yeah, and I think those were forces that were controlling maybe your mind, I don't know, and feeding off that sort of, it's stress to live that sort of life. And now you've come into a center place in yourself where you found freedom, I think.
Yeah, and so there's so much in that to know that, like, if it's good for the dark side, good for the light too. Like if they operate with sending thought patterns and oppression, well, then the angels or the higher beings, we'll just call them angels because that's everything's an angel that's above us. We think, if they can send thoughts too and make you feel good, like they change the feeling of of your body, of your room, of the city. Like if they're around you, you carry that essence. They're part of your aura. They're part of your team, and us as a collective, we are changing the aroma of the planet, and those beings are taking notice. And the beings that are here, they're taking notice too, and they're kind of upset. But our big brothers, they're watching over us and celebrating, and they're here to assist when we ask.
Because they're out of a job, those guys. I mean, they're feeding, and they're gonna have to change. They're just, but the poetry you give people just in your language is giving them possibilities and uplifting their frequency, because you're speaking from the frequency of holding the light, of holding the higher. That's what I get. And so because you've been through it all, you can see the whole thing, or
I haven't been through it all. I've been through my portion so far. And we all have, to a degree, of what we have to work with, right?
But you might be able to help someone who doesn't have to go, learn from your experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't learn from other people's experience. Somebody said, really, I don't really want to go there. You've had a hard time. I'm going to go to where it's more fun, so, but I really appreciate the space you're holding to bring people to that frequency, because
it's a fun space.
It's fun and it's peaceful. And I think we don't, I mean, I've done drugs and it's great, but I feel so high when I'm just relaxed
It's
and and it's like,
energy is so amazing right now that if you can move your heart to gratitude in anything. We just
yes,
talked about Jordan Maxwell and moving to gratitude. I go sit outside in the sunlight and let the sun bathe me, and I'm just saying thank you. And the wind, I get moved to tears, of just saying thank you and taking a deep breath in. Man, so many things are here. People that aren't here that would kill for this moment. And while I'm here and while I have the moment, let me just say thank you for the moment. Let me make the best of it, because I know this isn't eternal. But while I'm here, I get to look back at this life, and you see that I said thank you, and I became lucid in the dream. Let's say that, and I think that's what we're doing.
it's beautiful. No, really, if you can help people do that, you're lifting the vibration in, into these new realities, these new realms that people don't have to do drugs to feel good. Because when you're doing, I mean, I never really felt that. I never did a lot, or, but it's like I feel so much better not doing anything, having a really clear mind. If I smoke pot or drink alcohol, it it makes me less clear, less sharp. I want to be as aware of this beautiful reality and not numb out to it, even if it can be a little painful or confusing, or there's so much here that's a gift to us. That's really, what we're here to do. So
Yep. So good, so good. Well, Alan, thank you for coming on, hanging out with me, man. And yeah, I appreciate you and finally getting to talk to you, man. I've been a fan of your work again for years. It's like the early days for me of just scouring the internet. You were there, and it's just such an honor to talk to you and share the same space. Anything that you see in me and honor in me, I thank you. But it's because it's in you, brother. Thank you so much.
hey, I really appreciate you. Keep doing the show. A lot of people are really getting something from this that maybe I can't judge, but they're probably not getting other places. You're giving them your truth. And so thank you. I'm honored to be here. And I'll send you a PDF, okay? Of
Sounds
the
great. I'll dig in. We'll have to do it again. Thank you, brother.
anytime. Definitely. Thanks,
All right.
Derek.
Many blessings. Have a good day.
Your will so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to truthseekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.